Hey guys, Comic Boom here to review a brand new comic that no one's heard of called Die 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 by Image, written by Robert Kirkman. Guys, why didn't we hear about this? Well, it's really simple, guys. Robert Kirkman, along with Chris Burnham, Scott Gimple, and Nathan Fairburn all got together and they put together this really entertaining comic book called Die Die Die. And what makes it particularly interesting is the fact that they didn't advertise it. If you showed up at your comic book shop last week on Wednesday, this would have just appeared. There was no advertising from this. And Robert Kirkman, he keeps trying different things to try to harken back to the old nostalgic days of collecting comic books. And by nostalgic, I mean in the 1970s or 80s, for primarily the 80s and 90s, I guess, for Robert Kirkman. And the idea is, it used to be in the comic book shop. It used to be that you would go to your convenience store, even before the days of direct market comic book shops, where you didn't know which comic books were coming out. You didn't know what was advertised. There was no magazines that you could go to know which was coming out in what week, and if there was, you never got those magazines anyway. So it was always a genuine surprise when you went into a comic shop. I remember for years it used to be that way. I never knew what was going to come out. I'd go to the comic book shop and, oh, there happens to be a new Wolverine series. Who's this guy, Frank Miller? Never heard of him. It looks kind of cool. Those are days of excitement. Those days don't exist anymore. And so what's interesting here is Robert Kirkman wanted to do that. He wanted to create some excitement, and that's what this Die 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 is all about. And so I went to the comic shop. I saw this on the shelf. I picked it up. And it's explained all in the back what his purpose was for doing this. This is just a fun comic book. It's a violent comic book with a good plot, which I'll get to in a moment and give you a 2 or 3 minute synopsis. And kudos to Robert Kirkman for trying to entice the reader by giving us something we've not seen before, not advertising, and saying, hey, give it a shot, give it a shot. And what is Die 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 about? Well, guys, it's not particularly complicated, but it's just well written and it's beautifully drawn. The art here is really good. Chris Burnham on the art does a fantastic job. This has violent scenes. I'm not gonna lie, it's got some violence in it, but it's very well written. And the bottom line is this: if you're the type of guy that you're up to no good and you're doing something wrong and you know it's wrong, well, you could expect at some point, thanks in large part to a secret government organization, the secret cabal of the U.S. government, that will just ultimately make sure that at some point you die, die, die. Hence the very original name of the comic book. Now, if this seems a little bit too cliche, maybe a little bit too over the top, I think that's the intention. This is an entertaining comic book. And this starts off with basically a particular agent making sure that an old man gets the winning ticket during a horse race. And the consequences that flow from this old man winning at gambling at a horse race ultimately ends up doing something very good, and that creates a chain of events that results in basically preventing a pedophile politician from getting away with all kinds of stuff. Now, that's what's kind of crazy about it, is that the sort of the depressed protagonist in here is a female senator who I think at one point was very happy at her job, was elected during the tenure of President Obama, but quickly became just disgruntled with her job, depressed, and ultimately became affiliated with the secret cabal and began to utilize its resources for her own purposes, basically to do some good. But rather than to try to kill everyone to accomplish good, she tries to do it in other ways. Yes, there has to be some killing. You got to kill the bad guys once in a while. But because everything is linked, for example, if somebody is protesting, like an example in here is they want to get rid of somebody who is maybe protesting an environmental protest of some sort. Rather than kill the person, the other way that they can do it is simply remove the person from the equation by investigating that person's life and seeing what other things are important to them and maybe give them something more important to focus on and to worry about. If you get my meaning. It's always about choices. It's always about distractions and choices, and it's just filled with humor and great art. Guys, this is entertaining comic book. You got to give this a shot. It's only $3.99. It's for mature readers. It's funny. It's laugh out loud funny at parts. And it's not political. Don't worry about me mentioning about the Obama. It's not political. It's not SJW. It's not anything like that. This is just good old-fashioned fun. This is actually James Bond. This is James Bond humor, James Bond action, with just fisticuffs, and it looks like the good guys involved basically triplet brothers. And at the end, it involves one of the brothers being recruited to go rescue his other brother, who has had his nose cut off and is being held prisoner. Now, I just said a lot of crazy stuff here in a span of about 5 minutes and 30 seconds. And this is why you got to pick up this comic book, guys. You never saw it. You never saw it when you went in on your comic book shop. You never saw it advertised until it was just there on your comic book shelf. And if it wasn't there on your comic book shelf, it should have been, because Robert Kirkman made sure that most comic shops that would just end up in this would end up in their comic book boxes that they received on the Wednesday. So guys, pick it up, check it out. Robert Kirkman, Die, Die, Die. You won't be disappointed, guys. Die, Die, Die. Robert Kirkman, talk to your comic book retailer about it. And until next time, Comic Boom, out.